All right, let's talk about the big one, Roth versus traditional IRA. You've heard the advice a million times, right? Pick a Roth if you think you'll be in a higher tax bracket when you retire. Simple. But what if that simple advice is built on a massive misunderstanding? What if the very way we're taught to compare these two accounts is just wrong, and it could be costing you a fortune?
So, what is this huge mistake? Well, it's not about what funds you pick or anything like that. Nope. It's about the basic math we use right from the start. We're often comparing apples to oranges without even knowing it. Let me show you exactly what I mean.
You've definitely seen a chart just like this one. It's the classic comparison. So let's say your tax rate is 25%, both now and when you retire. With a Roth, you invest after-tax money, right? So you put in $7,500. With a traditional, you get a tax break up front, so you can invest the full pre-tax 10 grand. Now, we'll imagine both investments double. The Roth grows to $15,000 and you pull it out completely tax-free. Awesome. The traditional grows to $20,000, but you got to pay that 25% tax when you withdraw. And that leaves you with $15,000. Exactly the same. So if your tax rate doesn't change, it's a wash, right? It doesn't matter. Well, that's where the story we're told goes wrong. This quote right here really nails it. We're told to just compare our tax bracket today to our bracket in the future. And yeah, it's simple, but it's also dangerously incomplete. This little oversimplification is where a ton of people get tripped up. So we need to completely reframe this whole conversation. It's not about comparing one bracket to another. The real distinction is way more subtle. And honestly, once you see it, it changes the entire game. To really get this, we need to be crystal clear on two very different kinds of tax rates. First, you've got your marginal tax rate. Think of this as the tax you pay on your very last dollar earned. It's your top tax bracket. But then you've got your effective tax rate. And this is the average rate you pay across all of your income. It's a blended rate. And because of the way our tax system is set up, your effective rate is pretty much always lower than your marginal rate. That little difference, that is the key to this whole thing. And here's a look at why, using the 2025 tax brackets. You see, you don't pay your top rate on all of your money. Your income actually fills up these brackets like buckets. You pay 10% on the first chunk of your money, then 12% on the next chunk, and so on up the ladder. Your total tax is a mix of all these different rates, which gives you that lower effective rate. So here it is, the first big aha moment. When you contribute to a traditional IRA, you get that nice tax deduction. Well, that deduction saves you money from the top down. It knocks down your taxable income from your highest bracket. It's like you're taking money out of the most expensive tax bucket first. But, and this is the flip side that changes everything, when you retire and start taking that money out, the whole process reverses. Your withdrawals don't just get hit with your top tax rate. Instead, that money starts filling up the tax buckets from the bottom up. It fills the 0% bucket first, that's your standard deduction, then the 10% bucket, then the 12% bucket, and on and on. Okay, enough theory. Let's make this super concrete with an example. Let's imagine a single person who makes $115,000 a year. After they take the standard deduction, their taxable income is an even $100,000. So what are the tax rates they're really dealing with? Well, looking at those tax brackets, the last dollars they earn fall into the 22% bracket. This is their marginal rate. So when they put money into a traditional IRA, they get an immediate tax savings of 22 cents on the dollar. That's the number everyone tends to focus on. But hold on, what's their effective tax rate? You know, the actual average rate they pay on all their income. It's only 14.7%. Just look at that huge gap. Because their income filled up all those cheaper tax buckets first, their blended rate is way, way lower than their top rate. This is the number that really matters for retirement. And this brings us to the new math, the real retirement tax reality. Once you understand this difference between marginal and effective rates, the whole equation for choosing an IRA gets turned on its head. Okay, let's put this new understanding side by side. The choice is not paying 22% now versus maybe 22% later. The real choice is this. Do you want to pay a 22% marginal rate on your money now with a Roth, or pay a 14.7% effective rate on your money later with a traditional? I mean, when you frame it like that, the traditional IRA suddenly looks a whole lot better, doesn't it? You're swapping a really high tax rate today for a much, much lower one in the future. And just how big of a deal is this? Well, for the Roth to have been the better choice, our person would need their future effective tax rate to climb all the way up to 22%. And for that to happen, they'd need a retirement income of over $274,000 a year. For someone making $115K today, that's a seriously high bar.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, but what about tax rates going up in the future? What about Social Security? Totally valid points. So let's dive in and tackle those common concerns right now.
This is probably the number one objection you'll hear. Sure, the math works today, but taxes are bound to go up in the future, right? So I should just pay my taxes now with a Roth and get it over with. It sounds logical, but what does the actual history tell us? If you look back at the historical data, you see something kind of surprising. For the last few decades, effective tax rates have been remarkably stable. In fact, for people with higher incomes, they've actually trended down a little. So this idea that our taxes are just destined to skyrocket, well, it might not be the sure thing we think it is.
Okay, what about the other big one, Social Security? Won't that income eat up all your lower tax brackets? Let's factor it in. Even if our person gets the absolute maximum Social Security benefit possible, their total retirement income would land around $163,000. That's still nowhere near the $274,000 break-even point we talked about. So for this person, even with Social Security, the math doesn't fundamentally change. So what's the bottom line for you and your money? Let's wrap all this up into a much smarter framework you can use to make your own decision. So here's what to remember. 1. The real choice is always your current marginal rate versus your future effective rate. 2. This means for a lot of us, the traditional IRA is a much more powerful tool than we've been led to believe. And 3. The big exception here is if you expect a ton of other income in retirement. We're talking a big pension, a major inheritance, things like that. That kind of income can fill up your lower tax brackets and push your effective rate high enough to make the Roth the winner.
So in the end, picking an IRA is a bet on your future. But now you know the real bet you're making. It's not just about whether taxes go up or down. It's about whether you think your future effective tax rate will be higher than your current marginal tax rate. So with this new way of looking at it, which rate are you going to bet on?